Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Pac-12 Chat Show live here on the Voice of College Football and the Voice of College Football USC and Oregon channels. I'm Tony Altimore here with Tim Prangley, Rick, LBC Trojan, and Chris TBM. And guys, this is an exciting one tonight. Hold on before we get to the excitement, as we let everybody sign in here. What did you guys think of so far before we talk about it? Just quick reactions to the Pac-12 this week.
Well, another week, another kind of drip of information from the Pac-12. We had schedule release last week, and then we've had news in the past week of conference realignment, hearing stuff from the Big 12, from the Pac-10, from a lot of different sources in and around college football. And it looks like something that you've been talking about, Tony, is coming to fruition. So exciting time for the future of the Pac-12.
So if you guys remember, a couple weeks ago, or actually, I guess almost 6 months ago, just within a week of when USC and UCLA announced their departure, on the Voice of College Football, we started talking about what the Pac-12 should do. And if you remember, this is actually the graphic we used. We recommended 5 teams. We thought the first 2 teams, they're in order here, if you remember. The first 2 teams we thought the Pac-12 should add were San Diego State to fill the Southern California hole. We thought SMU was the prime fit for the conference. We thought Rice was a great fit for the conference. We thought Air Force is going to tell you no, but you make the call anyway. And we thought Fresno. But we said you start with SDSU and SMU, and something pretty amazing. And also, we talked a lot about Amazon. So we got a little Jeff Bezos here with the conference. And we thought that the conference would be very successful in a TV deal with Amazon. Well, guys, what an exciting week we believe that this is going to be. Some of you guys know the commissioner of the Pac-12, George Kliavkoff, was tonight at Moody Coliseum at SMU. Live photo shoot showing off those expansion credentials. He's there with their president and chairman of the board, who we're told has been running point throughout the process. And with that, our Pac-12 Chat Show Live has a breaking news projection. Now, this is not a inside source. We're going to tell you what, some kind of baloney of what we think. We have analyzed the behavior of the conference. We've analyzed the behavior of the schools. We've talked to people involved. We have certain things that we're not allowed to talk about, so we're not going to talk about those. But we here on the Pac-12 Chat Show Live would like to officially project that we believe San Diego State and the Southern Methodist University will be the next members of the Pacific 12 Conference, replacing USC and UCLA, and that is pretty damn exciting. Guys, what do you think about the Mustangs and the Aztecs now projected? Now, once again, this is not signed. We are making projections. Guys, what do you think here about this projection?
Well, I have a lot of Aztec friends that are going to be very happy with that news for sure. San Diego is a beautiful place, and Pac-12 can still keep that Southern California visit, right? Coming down the 5 all the way down to San Diego. And I think they have a huge fan base. I'm going to have to defer to you guys about SMU, except for the fact that I do know that they're replacing. Well, I'll talk about later. What do you guys think, Rick?
Well, I think it's great for the future of the conference. Like you said, Tim, I've got a lot of friends that have gone to San Diego State, and to watch that university grow, and they just added the football stadium, but improved their academics. I think it's an exciting time for San Diego. Beautiful part of Southern California. Great beer down in San Diego. I do have some friends that have gone into SMU, and it's kind of funny because a few of them couldn't get into USC. So it's kind of like the Texas's USC, rich money over there, but a great education. And so it's exciting that you get the Texas market, you keep the Southern California market. I think it's a good move. Those are teams that you want to pull from to go from 10 to 12, if that's what the Pac-12 is going to be, or maybe they're going to add more. Who knows at this point?
I mean, if you're not taking anyone from an existing Power 5, right, or that's already been set to go to a Power 5, I don't know that there are two better picks for the Pac-12. I mean, I think it's as good as it possibly could be. You have San Diego State, the one, yeah, it gives you the Southern California market a bit, like you were talking about, Rick. But it's a school that's like on the rise academically, and Tony can speak more to that. And it's a big deal for that school to be at the table. And you have talked about this before, Tony, with like the Stanfords and Cals of the world in terms of what that school wants to be institutionally. And I mean, to be honest, like lately, maybe not this year, but San Diego State does have somewhat of a history in football with people like, Marshall. They have had good teams there. It's a place that's capable. They're investing obviously with the new stadium. You have people like Marshall Falk coming out of there. They've had good teams before. Basketball is definitely for all the West Coast attention that like Gonzaga deservedly gets and whatnot. For a team that's not a Power 5 school in the West, like San Diego State has done an excellent job of like getting guys. Like you look at like Leonard back in the day. They took Cal's best player a couple of years ago, still playing down there, Bradley, on the team right now that's ranked. And then you look at SMU, and it's funny to me because it's like back when I remember all this, and when I ever first heard of expansion when I was like a wee lad, and you heard rumors of the Pac-12 going to 16 and trying to like court Texas, right? The University of Texas.
Almost happened.
Right. And it's not quite that, right? But like SMU is a school that, there's no one been hit bigger in sports, football wise than what they had with the death penalty. And I kind of get the feeling that that's like a potential sleeping giant kind of football program where if they get the right stage, I think there's a lot of people with a lot of money in that town waiting to spend a lot of money on kids this time when the rules actually allow for it.
That'd be a lot of gold Trans Ams. I'll tell you that right now.
Actually, guys,
where not
how many
you guys ends up competing and being very, very good.
Do you think the Stanford band will find every gold Trans Am left in this country and circle the field with it like they used to do with white Ford Broncos?
That's a good point, Tony.
Yeah, I think they will. I don't think they're going to have to do anything. Hey, let me tell you guys just real quick, everybody in chat, why don't we talk just a minute about these schools that are coming in? So SMU is very much, for those of you guys who are Pac-12 fans, you're going to hate this. SMU is very much like USC. A lot of the same like sort of student culture, the same sort of stereotypes, beautiful campus in the city, although their neighborhood's a lot better. And San Diego State is really a fantastic school. It's really sort of a flagship at Cal State's. I wanted to show you guys something here academically. So this is looking at admissions rates and where the two new schools fit in. San Diego State will be the third most elite admissions-wise program in the Pac-12 between Cal and Washington. SMU will now be the fifth of 12, coming in right there between Washington and Utah. So like these are some pretty serious academic schools. SMU will be fourth overall ranked academically because they fit between was it Washington and Colorado, I think. And then SDSU is a little lower ranked because you guys, we've talked about this. We won't go into it. Because of the California Master Plan, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Also, they don't issue PhDs, so that's one of the things they get ranked on. So they're ranked much lower, really, than they should be. They're ranked about 150. That's the average for the Big 12. It's the third worst for the Pac-12. I mean, it's still fine. It's better than Wazoo, better than Oregon State.
Man, Tony really drops off a cliff after Washington. I didn't realize that.
What?
You get south of Washington, and it really drops off pretty fast as far as the
admissions.
Admissions, holy smokes!
It's good to be the dogs. I mean, that's also pretty similar to some of the other Big Ten schools and all that. This is sort of a grouping. And then let me just forward through this. Now, once again, we do want to talk, guys, here about the fact that this is not signed yet. Or we don't know that it's signed yet. Actually, we think it might be. But we know that there will be an official process where the commissioner will go back. The commissioner will recommend. The Pac-12 will issue an invitation. Those invitations will be accepted. There are people who believe very strongly that these deals are handshake done. There are people who believe very strongly that these deals might be more than handshake done. We are not going to comment on that. We are not going to guess at that. We're not going to lie to people, or we're not going to make up fake rumors. Again, we are projecting, like election night, we are projecting that those two new schools are coming. San Diego State is a really, really neat and fantastic school. And we want to talk about just a little bit of an interesting piece with San Diego State that I think is pretty special here. And some of you guys might remember, I did this on Twitter. I called on Chancellor Christ from Cal Berkeley to reassume the mantle of leadership that the University of California always had. This conference was founded twice by the University of California. They were a leading factor in founding the Pacific Coast Conference in 1915. They were led imperially by UC President Sproul. That's him kind of you'll see him under the Golden Gate Tower, the very old guy in the back, as in Sproul Plaza, Sproul Hall. That's President Sproul, 20-some years as president of the University of California, legendary figure. He was the head of the presidents of the Pacific Coast Conference for its basically entire time that they had a president's council. And just a really, really legendary figure that made this conference what it was. And then as the Pacific Coast Conference started to break apart, he authorized its replacement, which was built by his replacement, Dr. Clark Kerr, one of the most famous leaders in higher education, who's standing right next to him, and Chancellor Seaborg, who was the founder of the Pac-12 and the discoverer of plutonium, a Nobel Prize winner. These guys were absolute rock stars. These are the giants who built our conference, and they hired Admiral Hamilton, who's on the right there, to run the conference for them. They rescued a conference of the Pacific Coast Conference, which was an absolute garbage dumpster fire, and they built from it the Pac-12. And that's just absolutely, they're truly legends in this field. Dr. Kerr also set up the California Higher Education Master Plan. He helped unify the UC systems, created the idea of the multiversity, invented the whole R1, R2, R3 systems, and he also helped set up the Cal States. But the Cal States and the UC schools have never really gelled well together in a lot of ways. And it goes back to 1919 when the University of California seized two of the normal schools for schools for teachers and stuff in Santa Barbara and LA, seized them from what became Cal States, turned them into UCLA and UC Santa Barbara. Since then, the relationship has been terrible between the Cal State schools and the UC schools. The reason that this is very, very meaningful and historic to people that are not from California, the reason I want to give you guys this as context, this is really, really, really important. This is going to put the Cal States at the table with UC Berkeley. And that is monstrous. That is uniting something that for 100 years has been a pain point and source of angst and anxiety and problems in the state of California. And I just want to give a shout out to the three people that are making that happen. And they are Commissioner Gliakov, who is standing on the shoulders of Admiral Hamilton. They are Chancellor Christ, who I think has risen to this mantle of leadership, standing on the shoulders of the chancellors and presidents of the UC before her. And a Cal Bear herself with 3 degrees from the University of California. Adela De La Torre, Dr. De La Torre from San Diego State, is just a remarkable figure who is the 9th president of San Diego State, has led them. They are doubling their campus. Everything about this school is rocketing up. And so these 3 folks have really taken this conference at a time of crisis and I think are boosting it up. And while they do so, they're actually creating something just tremendously impactful for the state of California that a lot of you guys really don't appreciate. So anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But guys, this is big.
Chris, is this why your parents love Tony?
Yes.
Sorry, I had to get that in there.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. No, but this is a big deal.
No, it is.
And again, it's not officially announced, but we are projecting that it's done. We believe that it's done, and it will probably be announced within the next 2 weeks or so. But it's go Bears, go Aztecs. What do you guys think? Final thoughts?
So do we think this means that they're done, at least for now?
So that's the good question. There is question that there will be more.
I'm wondering.
What do you guys think about that?
I'm wondering about that because.
By the way, Tulane should be on the chart, but I didn't want to remake it. I'm sorry.
Everybody has their opinion about why this media rights deal is taking an extra long time, and the longer it goes, the more suspicion I have at other possibilities. And you just think outside the box, and Klyavkov, he's been pretty well beaten up in the year and a half. The poor guy that's been on the job, having to clean up the mess that Larry Scott's made. And, he gets hit with USC and UCLA leaving the conference, a bunch of other issues. It wouldn't surprise me if the Pac-12 expands to 16 teams, or at least is trying to. And yes, it might not be financially feasible at the outset, but for them to create the infrastructure to possibly expand to the Florida market, to the East Coast, and pick up some schools so they can go to 16 and in there, and I'm not comparing them at all to the SEC or the Big Ten, obviously, but in numbers, they would have 16, keeping in line with the SEC and the Big Ten, and possibly including a couple of major media markets such as Houston, and South Florida is hanging out there. Could be another potential candidate, but we'll see. I think it's going to be 12, but it wouldn't surprise me if they go to 16.
My question,
and just real quick before our Big 12 friends who are in the chat lose their collective minds, the Big 12 has a buyout procedure that will this year is about $80 million. It's going to grow to about $100 million in the next few fiscal years. So understanding that any discussion of current Big 12 members would necessitate paying $100 million buyout, which is probably unrealistic. You all don't have to comment on it. We're well aware.
Tony, we're talking about this previously. We're talking about adding value, and my concern, I'm perceived value as well as financial. And I think Rick makes a great point about expanding geographically, and keeping that base, but adding. So here's the thing with what I'm wearing black, so it can throw stuff at me. I can be the bad guy, but here's the thing. I just see adding G5 schools, I don't think it really improves the prestige, number one, of your conference. Two, that means the schools like Oregon and Washington are going to get even a smaller cut of correct. If you're bringing on programs that actually bring less value overall as you begin to chop it back up again, isn't that going to be a point of contention for some of the existing schools?
Debate. Well, this is the debate. Is, for example, does adding Houston to your TV market make the pie bigger or smaller? I think actually Houston is an example of where it would make it bigger. I just use that as an example, but sorry.
I think it's also a little bit more complicated than just the right now, right? Because part of, if a lot of people would say part of what the Big 12 did, right, was not just oh, we're doing this for our media rights deal, but we're protecting ourselves toward the future, right? And I think part of the question that if you're running the Pac-12, you have to ask is, when the ACC grant of rights ends and there's this potential for another round of expansion 10 years down the line,
Yep.
are we better right now trying to grab assets like a USF and like a Tulane, or are we better off and like securing a more number of teams because we're worried that down the road a couple more schools like a Stanford or Washington or Oregon or Cal or whoever end up leaving for the Big Ten or something? If that were to occur, do you like protect against that already, like ahead of schedule, or do you think that like, oh well, if the ACC does end up getting plucked and other schools start getting plucked, do we wait for that to happen and see who's left over from a conference that we're very ideologically aligned with? And do those pieces look better potentially in the future than a Tulane or a USF?
And let me give you another piece, which is the story about Fresno. So if you guys remember that graphic I showed you at the beginning of the thing, this was from our analysis last July, July 3rd or something of last year. We talked about this a little bit. One of the things about Fresno is I sort of have three questions about Fresno that I would ask, and I'd ask for your guys' thoughts on this, because I don't know really what to think about Fresno. And the reason for that is that I don't think Fresno really fits as much the profile. I mean, it's a great team, lively, robust fan base. You guys have known we've thrown the Jake Haener and the Fresno and the Valley Love all year. But as far as going into the pack, there are three questions that I really think have to be answered. The first one from everybody thinking about Fresno, tell me you guys think about this as a good model for this, is, are you afraid of losing Stanford and Cal in the next 10 years, say? The second one to ask is, if you're thinking about expanding in a broader numbers way, more inventory way, how far east are you willing to go? Are you willing to talk about Storrs, Connecticut, and Tampa, Florida, and New Orleans? Or do you want to be closer to home? And the third one I would ask is, do you have a fear that the Big 12 would take them in the next 10 years? I don't think the Big 12 is going to take them now, because we've talked about this. The Big 12 doesn't have any money to take them now under their TV deal, unless the Big 12 is going to do a strategic ad and just eat the cost, which I don't think they're going to do, because I've never seen a fan base more obsessed with 37 cents than their folks. But I look at those three questions, and I don't know the answer to any of the three that would lead me to make a firm, hard, like, yes, we should take them, no, we shouldn't. What do you think?
Fresno would be a good safety measure for the Pac-12 to consider, because I think in the next wave of alignment, there's a great possibility that Stanford and Cal will go to the Big Ten, will be candidates. And that'll keep you in the California market along with San Diego State. So that is something to consider, because I think what you have to look at, maybe if you're Klyovkov, it's like that game Risk, right? Where you're invading countries and with armies and what have you. But the Big 12 has already played their hand. They have their deal signed up. So the Pac-12 is negotiating their deal. And the one thing that has changed is that there's the college football playoff is going to be happening in 2024. So a school like SMU and San Diego State, they're loving the opportunity. Now it's going to be easier. They're going to have a wider path to get to the college football playoff. They could win, the conference, or they could actually have a great year and get an at-large bid. Whereas before, you have to be the winner of the AAC or a group of five conference, the highest rated one, to get into the college football playoff. So, and there's other opportunities. There's other opportunities to consider. Is, do you want to expand your footprint and you're looking down the road, like Tim was saying? Like Chris was saying, is when the ACC grant of rights gets closer, is the SEC going to poach some schools? Is the Big Ten going to poach some schools? So it would be an opportunity now to get in that Florida market, and maybe also look at Rice or Tulane in different markets to grow the Pac-12 footprint.
So the thing to me, Tony, or the question I would ask is there any rush to bring in a Fresno State? Because like, I think that, I mean, are you worried about who else is going to grab them? And is it just, I feel like, and no offense to the Bulldogs, but I don't know that you're really super concerned with the Big 12 hopping into California and plucking Fresno State from you. And if Cal and Stanford or whoever were to leave and you're worried about keeping California as a market and whatnot, I think whether you ask them today or you ask them when that happens, Fresno State's going to jump at the opportunity no matter when it happens. I would guess. I don't know.
And presumably the Big 12 is not going to do that in secret.
Chris, earlier on when you were talking about the viability of this thing going long term forward, we don't know. I think it's going to turn into a standoff between the Big Ten and the SEC at some point. And I think that the top programs from some of these from the ACC and the Pac-12 are going to get poached by them respectively. And I think it's going to be like an arms race as they're added to balance each other out for TV contracts. And so when you lose the markets, like if you lose Washington and the Bay Area schools for the Pac-12, it's really what's left of the Pac-12. I think it'd be hard to compete with a Big Ten and an SEC as far as I think Division I football, or FBS as we call it now, is going to be redefined in the next huge movement, which is going to be coming down the road in the early 30s, right?
When the UNCs of the world are relocating.
Yeah.
Miami, Florida State, UNC, that move, and then you're going to have Washington, Cal, and Stanford.
I would say, actually, real quick, Cindy says San Jose State. Interestingly enough, San Jose State was originally supposed to be one of the founding members of the Pac, because Stanford was being such just a whiny, pissy pain in the ass that they didn't know if they were going to actually join or not. But yeah, no, they're not.
Tony,
bring Santa Barbara football back and make Cal pay for it, like we're subsidizing Cal.
I agree. UC Irvine. Let's rename UC Irvine UC Newport Beach, because that's what it is.
Hey, let's not forget about Long Beach State. George Allen was the coach.
He was.
Terrell Davis was the last of the 49ers, and he won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. Good old Terrell Davis.
What as we think about other teams, just if you guys were going to add 4, who would be your 4?
I think you have it right with I think earlier someone said, so I think the 2 that we're talking about that we believe are joining are easy with San Diego State.
Yeah, assuming we're back to 12. If you were going to go to 16, which 4 would you take?
Rice, Houston.
Let's take out the Big 12, because let's assume that nobody's going to pay the $80 million buyout.
All right. Then I'll go with Rice, Tulane. I'm just, it's hard. I don't see too many programs adding value. So if they had to do it, Rice, Tulane.
You guys in the chat, put your 1, 2, 3, 4.
Are we pretending that Air Force is going to pick up the phone?
Well, so that's a question. So let's assume Air Force says no. Because the Pentagon, and by the way, one of the issues, guys, with Air Force, and Tide Guy's in the chat, Tide Guy knows this better than anybody. Actually, Tide Guy, they have signed their grant of rights already. I can send you a copy if you need. They have, the Big 12 has, there's sort of a rumor about the Big 12 and the grant of rights. They have, it's in the West Virginia Board of Governors minutes and stuff like that. I have a copy of it, actually. So they have signed that. Guys, so one of the issues with Air Force also is in this increasing era of NIL. There are a lot of like ethics rules and stuff like that that have to do with military officers and how they earn extra money and stuff like that. And they do not yet know how they're going to do with NIL. Air Force has turned down multiple opportunities, twice actually, to be founding members of the PAC. Once is the Airplane Conference, once is the AAWU. So let's assume that Air Force, you pick up the phone, you call Air Force, and they say no. Who are your other four?
So personally, I think that you could add Rice academically if you somehow get a promise from them that they're actually going to invest in athletics, because there's no bigger like academic piece out there. And I think Tulane is also worth it. And then I think you have to start looking at either Reno or UNLV at some point. But I kind of think that personally, I think the better move is to only add someone if they're worth it right now, and then wait. Just because, I mean, I can see a world where like if the Big Ten and the SEC are doing what we're talking about, and then there's a bunch of schools left over between the Pac, the Big 12, and the ACC trying to figure out what they're all going to do together. And you can use your academic prowess, if those schools are still part of your conference, to be like, oh, the Kansas, is the Big Ten spurning you again? Like come hang out with us. Or, I mean, and who knows what's going to happen. It's so far in the future. But yeah, I would say something like UNLV, Rice, Tulane, and USF just to go into Florida for the heck of it.
I would go like Chris was saying, USF to go into Florida. I would take Memphis. I would do Tulane. So then you'd have like a Midwest to an East Coast pod with SMU, those four, and then I would look at Boise or UNLV, but I would kind of lean towards UNLV because it's the Vegas market, and the conference has a lot of tournaments and their championship in Vegas, and so I would look at Vegas with Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida. That's the other four I would look at.
Tony, where does Memphis fit in academically or like institutionally? Because I think that's a good pick, football and basketball wise.
Very similar to UNLV.
Gotcha.
And pulled pork sandwiches in Beale Street. Let's bring them in.
I know. Pulled pork, it is really good. Let me throw out another one to you guys. Just now, I believe that the Pac-12 wants to stay as regionally committed as possible to a reasonable extent. What do you think about the Fighting Moors of UConn? If we wanted to be crazy.
Well, we're talking about USC flying incredible distances to the Midwest, but now we're talking about USF to Eugene and San Diego State to Connecticut. I mean,
the world's really gone mad.
We're really pushing that geography thing.
The world's gone mad.
So,
Tony, I know we're a football show, by the way, but I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Is there any thought for like I guess it would be the streaming services that would drive this, is like, because I know in a lot of other sports already, like soccer and whatnot, where because of various like legislative issues and whatnot, right? There's like, not every school has every sport. So there's a lot of, right. There's a lot of schools that play like schools outside of the Pac-12 in, like they're Pac-12 adjacent in certain sports, right? Is there any talk of like adding a basketball only school to make that better, or is that not a real thing?
So the problem would be who? And the one that everybody talks about is Gonzaga. So I'll tell you, first of all, I love Gonzaga, go Zags. I believe that any room of decision makers is better with some Jesuit priests in it. I'm not going to lie. But the problem with Gonzaga is it's not a very Pac-ish school. So it's a very small Catholic school. They do, I mean, Catholic isn't a problem. Pac-12 has no actual problem with religion so far as you are inclusive, do not discriminate, are willing to play on Sundays, and have academic freedom for your professors. No problem with religion, provided you're able to do that. The problem with Gonzaga is the Pac already owns the state of Washington. So Gonzaga is way out in rural Spokane. And the Pac-12 works in scheduling pairs very, very well. So you're talking about you mess up your scheduling pair and you add somebody in rural Spokane in an area that you already own. And so now you've got a whole mix up of three Washington schools. And I don't have a good answer for like why you make it worth it. The advantage of adding a basketball only school is it's cheap. It's a rounding error. So for whatever reason, if you want another school, and we've talked about this with the Big 12, I think there's a lot of value in the Big 12 adding a tremendous amount of in the Big 12 adding a travel partner for BYU. But I just don't see it for the Pac. I mean, hypothetically, and I don't think the Pac is going to do this, right? Like, I do not think they're going to do this. But, what if there was a world where the Pac said, you know what we should do? We should add the Big West UC schools in our non-revenue sports. Like, we should add, UC San Diego baseball and UCSB tennis and that stuff, and just like bring in the whole University of California or do something like that. Again, completely irrelevant to football. But I don't think the Pac is looking to do that at all. And I'll tell you guys in all honesty, and this is just my personal opinion, I think that they want to fill the hole to be 12. I think they want it called the Pac-12, and they want 12, and they want to fill the hole, and they're not going to go bigger. That is my personal Tony guess. That is not a projection because we do not know at this point whether they will grow further. We are projecting that they are adding SDSU and Southern Methodist, but we are not. I don't believe we're able to project beyond that. What do you guys think? If you had to guess, do they stay at 12 or do they go bigger?
Yeah, I think 12.
You guys in the chat, tell us too, by the way.
I just think 12 because I just don't see the value added. And I think that I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that once this thing gets moving again, that the top schools in the Pac-12 are going to be absorbed. And then it's just going to be like another Mountain West conference. So I'm just being honest.
And real quick before you guys go, TJ is asking, define a travel partner. TJ, the way that these schools usually work is that you typically have a travel destination partner. It's not about, you do travel with them, but it's about where you go. So, for example, in the Pac-12, we have 2 teams in Washington, 2 teams in Oregon, 2 teams in San Francisco, 2 teams in LA, 2 teams in Arizona, and then the 2 mountain teams. So, for example, the 2 teams in San Francisco, Cal and Stanford, will both go up to Oregon. And like, say it's the soccer team. So one of them will play Oregon State on Friday and the other will play Oregon on Saturday, and the other one will flip. And so the idea is that you're playing multiple games on one trip. So, for example, in the Big 12 right now, they have BYU as this just albatross island of its own. So if you're going to go to BYU and play a soccer game from, Kansas State, you're driving 3 hours to an airport or whatever it is for Kansas State. It's so far away. And then you're flying there and you're there and you're in a hotel and you're only playing one game. And so it's really, really inefficient. And so with the Pac-12, the way that we typically do our games is you go somewhere for a weekend and you play 2 games. And that's what a travel partner is. And the Pac-12 and the Ivy League, more than any other conference, are brilliantly aligned in pairs. So we have not heard any announcement on this. We are guessing, so we're not projecting, we're guessing that they will probably realign the travel partners and have San Diego State and Utah and Colorado and SMU. And let me get to where we have that map. You guys remember that map slide, wherever it is. Oh, it's further up. I'll just show you guys on the map. You'll see. There you'll see. The schools are really in pairs. And this map is not a really good map, but they're in pairs and it makes it really easy for travel.
I think they stay at 12, Tony, unless a Houston Cougar comes rolling in and says something crazy like we want to pay a $80 million buyout and we'd rather hang out with you guys, or you have someone that like jumps out that you haven't like really thought of that really gives them a real reason to go beyond 12.
Yeah, I think they stay at 12 as well. I was just throwing it out there. If there was a time to consider 16, this would be it. But I just don't think it would make financial sense in the short term. It would in the long term. But in the short term, I think you have all the other PAC members that will be upset by the lower valuation. Please take this lower money. We trust us. We're going to make you a lot more money in the future. Where have we heard that before?
Larry Scott, part 2.
Hey, Oregon, take your medicine. you got an unfair share last time. You and Oregon State, you voted for it. You voted for the financial windfall that's going to come from you owning your own TV station, your own TV network. By the way, I just cut the cord on Monday, so no more direct TV. Screw those guys.
Ooh.
Yeah. But yeah, these other schools are not going to want to take a haircut to let these other teams in, and that's just how it gets. That's how it gets. That's what happens, right? So now they kind of, they're all upset for USC and UCLA leaving, but go ahead and take a haircut. We had to. Look what happened.
And Matt, I just want to be really quick on this. Probably not.
Yes.
A heads up.
And to actually the guy who says TCU wouldn't join the pack, TCU has repeatedly tried to join the pack as early as recently as a year and a half ago. That's kind of funny. I don't think right now the Big 12 teams have all we believe we're told. I've seen some of the documentation. I have some of the documentation. We believe the Big 12 teams have all signed their new updated media deal and are locked in with this. They're locked in technically for 99 years, or I guess probably 10 less of it, 90 years, 89 years, however much is left. At which point they will owe about $100 million buyout. So I don't think anybody's leaving the Big 12. All right, guys. So we've gone a little further in this than we want. Do we want to talk transfer portal now, or do we want to put it out for calls?
Well, why don't we take some calls? Let's take calls. We can do transfer portal next week.
Okay, we'll have charts next week too.
This was such a huge topic, and Tony, fantastic job earlier in the week. If nobody caught Tony's show on Monday, the realignment show on Mark Rogers, Voice of College Football main channel, go check it out. Tony goes into spectacular detail on
the timing turned out to be fortuitous.
Yeah, I mean, but Tony goes into further detail on realignment and looking at all the conferences and kind of projecting what university leadership will look for in the years to come.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We got our first caller. We got Tide Guy, who has a great channel you should all subscribe to. Tide Guy, welcome to the Pac-12 Chat Show Live.
Tony, check the private chat real quick. What's up, Jeff?
Jeff, what's happening?
Hey, I just wanted to make a couple comments. First, I don't want to wake up tomorrow and have Tim and Rick and Tony and say that Dewey lost.
No, we're making a prediction. We don't have inside information, but Tony's done all the research on this, and if you connect the dots again, that picture with Kliavkoff visiting the SMU basketball game.
It's a photo shoot.
There's some serious courting going on, right? Yeah. Maybe some heavy petting. I'm not sure, but it's moving somewhere.
There's also a photo.
Smoke. Yeah, there's a lot of smoke.
Yeah, it's a photo shoot. Like, they literally announced that he was going to the game. They sent Brett McMurphy all that stuff. And let me tell you guys something. All right, I'm going to talk out of school here, and I'm going to probably get yelled at for this. Twitter people are going to go crazy for this. We got Will and D, by the way. Let's pump him in. I think they gave it to Brett. They leaked the story to Brett McMurphy intentionally. And I think they did that, one, because John Wilner, who I love, reported the USC UCLA story before the Pac-12 knew. And so I think they gave him an elbow in the face by giving it to Brett McMurphy. And then I think they also gave it to Brett McMurphy because he is kind of a mouthpiece of the Big 12. And that just sort of tells their people, this is real. But the funny thing is, and especially there's these creepy BYU people who are like obsessed with like stalking like the nightmare scenarios of the Pac-12. And they need some like mental health counseling. It's really scary. Anyway. All right. Sorry, I'll move on.
All right. Hey, I had a question for you guys. You guys are talking about, do they stay at 12 or go on? What do you guys think about Fresno State? Would you grab Fresno State just to keep the Big 12 out? And also, you have to expect that sometime there's a good chance that Stanford could be leaving for the Big 10.
You missed okay, Tide Guy, you and I think alike. That was literally my whole point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got lost and come back in. I must have missed that.
Let me tell you, there is nothing in the world better than when Tide Guy says something, and it's what I also think. So I'm taking that as a compliment.
I'm just going to be the contrarian and say that I don't think that the Big 12 is like would look to do that, and I don't know that like a TV thing would give them more just because they brought in Fresno State. And I think if you ran into the situation where you lose one or both of the Bay Area schools, that Fresno State's just going to be there for you whenever you want it.
And the thing is, right now we know the Big 12 has $0 to allocate towards until 2031 or something. The Big 12 has $0 to add towards a G5 edition, and they only have $20 million to add towards a Power 5 edition, but they have only $0 for a G5 edition. So the question would be, even at a half share, would the Big 12 people be willing to have every school eat $1.5 million or something to pay for Fresno State? And I don't. Again, I've never seen a fan base more obsessed with 37 cents. So I doubt it. What do you think, Will?
Grade 6.
Well, I'm really excited for San Diego State because they don't have, they lost the Chargers. So they really want, a big team to root for. And if the money comes in to fund San Diego State to make it a competitive team in the Pac-12, I think they can fill up that new stadium and really get a huge fan base going for their school.
We're looking at that new stadium here on the screen right now. It's Snapdragon Stadium. It's awesome. So right now it's at 35,000. It's actually designed and built to be upgraded to 55,000.
Yeah,
and
San Diego State doesn't really have a solid team where the Padres they've even been relegated. So yeah, they're struggling to have some kind of strength. SDSU would be the power team in the San Diego area, right, Rick?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
One question I have about SMU, I'm not trying to be. So what makes it SMU different than BYU? Because it's kind of weird that.
Where do we begin? No, I'm just kidding.
Joining.
Yeah, literally, we could spend 4 hours on that topic.
It's Mino. It's Methodist in name only.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's as Methodist as Texas Christian is Christian. You got Baylor, you got TCU. It totally different than BYU. BYU is on its own level. It's all about the greenbacks. SMU, it's a perfect fit for the Pac-12.
SMU is very much like USC. I'll tell you, Will, just also, SMU has academic, the key things for the Pac-12. SMU has academic freedom for its professors. BYU does not. BYU literally told its professors that, your research will be evaluated on how it fits with the Book of Mormon. That was literally a big news item last week. Absolutely it's pretty disgusting from an academic standpoint. BYU has just abysmal tradition of nightmarish racial discrimination going back many, many decades. SMU is actually one of the most famous breakthrough programs for African-American athletes there is. BYU is literally rated as a hate group as far as their treatment of the LGBT community, whereas SMU has nearly a perfect score from Campus Pride. SMU is independent. Like they have their own board of trustees. BYU is a wholly owned subsidiary of a church that they are ordered to put church dogma in the curriculum, and just putting religious dogma in curriculum that affects science and that affects academic freedom is just not acceptable to the Pac-12. This is why, like we talked about Jesuits. Like, yeah, if there was a Jesuit school, Pac-12 is absolutely no problem with that. But if there is another school, just Liberty, just a trash institution, would never be able to be in the Pac-12.
Did the Pac-12 consider Rice instead? I know Rice is another great institution.
So we don't. I have to imagine 100% that Rice has been on their list. There are people that believe that Rice may still, that who knows if the commissioner shows up in Houston tomorrow. That is up to anybody's guess. We can't make a projection on that. I'm sure that they were considered. I mean, again, Rice. So Rice is academically ranked number 15. I believe it's ranked higher than Vanderbilt. It's right with like Northwestern. Rice is one of the most elite schools in the world.
Tony, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did SMU really call Pontiac and tell them to start building Trans Am so that way if recruits' parents can't make the game, they could drive them to the games?
They might have. You guys, like we said, the Stanford band is going to find every gold Trans Am, and it will be at Stanford Stadium for the first time SMU shows up. You know it.
That'll be awesome.
Archer is saying Pac-12 doesn't like religious schools. Archer, that is not true. That is a factual wrongness. There's no issues. Again, you need to have academic freedom. You can't be discriminatory bigots. You have to be willing to play sports games on Sundays so kids can be in class on Monday, and you have to let your faculty do research. I don't think that's a high bar, to be totally honest.
I mean,
USC and that is very in line with the Jesuits.
USC itself was founded as a Methodist alignment, right?
And it was all the way through to 1950 or 40? When was it, Tony, when they finally dropped that designation?
I think it was like the late 40s. Yeah, I mean USC's first mascot was the Fighting Methodists. So it really is kind of funny that SMU is very much like USC. I can't stop telling you guys like this. So the big joke is the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is going to add SMU that's a lot like USC, and San Diego State that is a lot more like UCLA than people think. And Stanford and Washington, Cal are going to be like, "Oh my God, we thought they were gone."
Yeah, like I like to joke that UCLA is going to hand the baton to the Cal State school, little brother, and USC,
yep.
Like SMU, we both got the death penalty, so we're just going to hand them our checkbook. I mean, playbook. Now it's legal. NIL, baby. Uncle Phil knows what that's about.
And on that note, we've got Alex Raya, devout Cal Bear. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys.
Alex,
welcome. What do you think about SMU?
Oh, Jesus, is this really happening?
We believe that it is. Again, there's if anything can happen until it's announced, we believe that it is.
Yeah, and
you've grown like you just got USC version 2.0.
Well, it's smaller. It's small, but
it is smaller.
Yeah, and I've told Mark prior that San Diego State is one thing, but money aside, yeah, SMU, it's kind of hard to, you got to do something, because the thinking was that the new TV deal wouldn't be done unless you got a few more folks in. You get something with San Diego. With SMU, I'm not so sure. We'll see how that goes, but as some of you guys have been talking about, at this point, Pac-12 12. Now would be 12 proper again. To me, it's still a dead man walking. Again, this maybe limps along for a while, but I don't know why we talk more expansion, whatever. I mean, just at this point, you're almost just trying to contain the damage with who you add. Like there was a comment like way at the start of the show of like, saying San Diego State and SMU are dead weight. Well, we're treading water here. So we'll see if with SMU, there is money. I mean, if Sherwood Blunt starts writing those checks again, maybe they do something, but we'll at the very least, they have picked up somewhat in the last, this past decade when Dykes was there. So they're not like completely dead. And San Diego State, well, there are a lot of alumni in San Diego. If they really get behind the program, which I looked this up, this past decade, they've actually been bowl eligible for almost the entire time, which they hadn't done before. Because otherwise, and
that's better than a lot of Pac-12 schools. And by the way, San Diego State beats the snot out of a lot of Pac-12 schools.
They have been doing that pretty consistently lately. The only thing with expansion for me is this idea is, do they have what is there to actually compete for the conference? Because SMU, they got slammed, with the death penalty, and that was that. So we know they can compete nationally. Can San Diego State do that? And I looked this up, except for one season back in the 70s where they finished near, I think like 10-1, and they beat a good Florida State team that year. Like even their recent run where they've run the Mountain West, I mean, they've barely cracked the top 25. So my question is San Diego State, set up to, do what Utah did, where they, Utah's now won the conference back to back. Colorado hasn't done anything, but again,
hold that thought for 1 sec. We just want to thank Matt Ritson. Matt Ritson, thanks for super chat. He says, forgot Santa Clara and St. Mary, drop football, great basketball, and Pac-12 better not make deal with Amazon. Bad news, because he likes the ESPN app. We are projecting, we have been told that a significant portion of the deal will be with Amazon. Part of the deal is reportedly with ESPN. We know that there is no part of the deal with Fox that we know of. We're pretty sure that. We've heard rumors of CBS, but we believe that the deal is a mix of Amazon and ESPN. We don't know whether ESPN Plus will be a part of it, like for the water polo and stuff like that, or if that will all be on Amazon. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, thank you, Matt, for that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, that's why you just said like Pac-12 network's worthless. So if we get an ESPN Plus deal, or even Amazon isn't too bad. So
yeah, and the question, the assumption right now that we are hearing is that the Pac-12 network, who just leased a new production facility, will be doing by the way, the Pac-12 network production has always been good. And so, it's better. It's better than a lot of the ESPN and Fox stuff. And so, the current Pac-12 network will produce content for Amazon, is the belief.
Okay. Yeah. Cause, the only problem with the network is, getting it, which like even in San Francisco, if you don't have Comcast,
so the Pac-12 network reportedly will not exist as we think of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the investment in technology, which is just fantastic. Again, the quality of what they produce is better than what like you see on FS1. So their quality of production will be used, but it's just all, and there won't be like a Pac-12 network like we think of anymore. You'll watch it presumably on Amazon or possibly on ESPN Plus. I'm presuming it's Amazon.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, as you said, Amazon, they're essentially going to carry the network rather than the network having to, do its own deals, which, again, like doesn't matter how good the broadcast
probably
is.
Won't even call it the Pac-12 network. I mean, the name Pac-12 network will just like go away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Reportedly. Again, we do not have details of that TV deal. We know that based on what they leaked, and I say what they leaked, like they probably wrote the tweet for Brett McMurphy. Let's be honest. There might just be too much former Washington boy in me. but I'm pretty sure the Pac-12 just wrote that tweet for McMurphy. They said that a significant portion would be on the streaming service, and based on the fact that they've rented now that studio, which we knew they did that after they had the deal mostly done. Guys, I think this deal's been mostly done for a while, and so as a result, that's why. Eddie's asking, do we have any confidence that SDSU is willing to spend more money when they earn more money on good football coaches? I don't know. San Diego State's been bowl eligible for most of the last decade. Seems like they're doing pretty well.
They have lots of alumni. Like there's a lot of alumni.
Yeah. Why SMU? Oh, SMU has tons of money. Yeah. And SDSU has also. I mean, SDSU just built a $300 million stadium just on their own. They're fine. Connor Johnson wants to know, where are the Sun Devils at? I think they're probably at the bar. The Sun Devils are not. They're not chatting online to strangers around the country on the internet. They're at the bar.
Yeah, the Waste Management Tour, I think, started today, so they're probably at the golf course now on Mill Street.
Yeah, they're probably wasted at the golf course. Yeah. ASU fans are partying, bro. They're having a lot more fun than we are. Hey, but I love you guys. I thank you for spending your night with us. We appreciate it. Oh, too funny. ASU fans praying for Big 12 invite. Let's be honest, guys. All right, let's have a Pac-12 only moment here. Everyone else, cover your ears. Michael Crow would join the Big West before he joined the Big 12.
Well, Jason sure wants Arizona to join the Big 12.
He's been lying to people for months.
That guy's a miserable guy.
He's like the least like the most dense report. Like, I mean, just especially after Dave Heek just like embarrassed him. I mean, their own athletic director just like humiliated that guy's own coverage. It was pretty sad. All right, I don't want to get into it because he'll send his minions after us on Twitter, and I don't have time to deal with that many like crazed methods or whatever.
Tony, what about the report today that Colorado cannot afford to pay their head coach? I mean, everybody's using that as an example of why Colorado's going to the Big 12.
Yeah, first of all, again, if you guys want, we can show the Big. Do we need to show the Big 12 money slide so that we can put this stupid idea to bed? Would that be helpful for you guys in the chat? Do you want to see why the Big 12 does not have the money that their stupid fans think they do? You can show it if it helps.
But Tony, if you show it, then that'll show the people why the Big 12 cares so much about 12 cents. It just means more than the Big 12.
It does. The 12 cents means more. So actually, the thing with Dion and the pay guys, that's just a fundraising ploy. That's like when Nick Saban said he doesn't have enough NIL money, and it was to the Birmingham Business Bureau or whatever that speech was to, and that was called "Get Out Your Checkbook." That was just literally telling people get out your checkbook.
Kind of like our athletic department's $100 million in debt or whatever.
Yeah, your athletic department has no debt. Your school loans itself money to pay itself and then charges itself interest. It's great. Just, guys, so we're hearing based on Brett McMurphy's tweet about the Pac-12 adding SDSU and SMU and that getting it the TV house reach that it needed to hit the target it wants. The target the Pac-12 wanted was $30 to $35 million. Now remember, a Pac-12 school has an average budget of about $2 billion core academic. 4% of that is athletics. Big 12 athletics are a much bigger deal because they spend less actually on their athletic departments, but they're much smaller dollar schools. They have smaller budgets. So their schools are less than half the size and budget of a Pac-12 school. So 11% of their money is on sports. At Washington, for example, only 1.2% of Washington's budget, 1.3% of Washington's budget is sports. So, with Pac-12, we're expecting an offer of 30 to 35 million per school. That includes the Pac-12 network content. That's per yesterday's reporting. We know that they've already rejected somewhere between 25 and 30, which is fine. We know there's some value to the standalone. And again, the Pac-12 has $0 exit fees at the end of grant of rights. That probably won't change. Who knows? That's up to them. I doubt it. Now remember, if a Pac-12 team was going to go to the Big 12, they would have to spend about $5 million more in travel. which is a lot of money. So let's look at what the Big 12 can do. Well, they get $31 million in their new deal, so that's pretty good. But their new deal is really, really strict on adding teams, and this is just fact. This is just the way it is. They get $0 for any G5 team, so I don't think they're going to add Fresno State because they get $0. So as much as they stress about 37 cents, they'd have to just pay out of their own hide, out of their own share for anybody they wanted to add. They only get $20 million in media rights for adding a power conference team. That has to do with the fact that Fox does not actually, because Fox only has a limited number of games from them. Fox doesn't pay more. Fox only pays for its 2 games. Only ESPN pays for it. So there's only $20 million for them to add in media rights for them to add any teams, and that is just. Even in the lies people are telling about the Pac-12 media deal, that's less. And then you got to take another $5 million off of that for the travel.
So speaking of lies, Rick's a bit confused here. He wants to know where you're getting your numbers, Tony.
These are all reported on ESPN. They're also on John Kurtz and on SIGM 365. John Kurtz reports all this, as does SIGM 365, as does ESPN. And Fox.
And would you say that they're quite the Big 12 crowd putting these numbers out? So it's not like Tony's making up some numbers. These are numbers.
No, this is from John Kurtz is Kansas State to the gills. SIGM 365 is the Baylor channel. They're sponsored by Baylor. Love those guys. And again, the Big 12 has put these numbers out. Mac Rhodes verified them on SIGM 365. These are very straightforward numbers. Brett McMurphy last night reported the Pac-12 expecting to get what is its target? Its target is 30 to 35. That's pretty straightforward. The 25 to 30 you've seen also reported already. I mean, this is all straightforward. The other stuff's in the Department of Education filings. Conference fees are very public. Now, remember, too, that one last piece. There is extra money that everybody gets that's not media rights. And that extra money is from things like the college football playoff, bowls, NCAA share, etc. Every school in every conference, the way the conferences have these deals, gets that. Right now, it's about 10 or 12 million per school. With the new college football playoff, we think it's going to go up to about 20, might even go up to 25 with the college football playoff. But the thing is, that's the same in the Big 12 or the Pac-12. So there's not more money one way or the other. So it's Ski Vermont. SMU has actually received awards for its inclusion programs, and they actually are one of the most famous breakthrough programs in racial integration. I mean, no campus is perfect, but they certainly do a lot to try to help people. So that's just sort of a fact. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's another like BYU person who's just mad. Anyway, so I mean, again, this is just facts. So again, the Big 12, the number is 15 million when you take 20 and you subtract the cost of extra travel. And that's there you go. Kuz's corner. Kuz is awesome. So that's the thing is like the Big 12 is getting good money, very good money. Like and I have a slide. I don't know if you guys have seen. I just like praise Brett Yormark because Brett Yormark, by the calculations of how the Big 12 lost value from Texas and gained money, I think he got them 125% increase, and that is freaking awesome. So Brett Yormark is the man, but this contract is not designed to add teams. And what I believe, and again, this is just my own analysis, my own business analysis belief here, is that they knew they weren't going to get San Diego State, and they knew they weren't going to get any of the Pac-12 teams because none of the Pac-12 teams were going. So this contract is written knowing that they're not going to get any of those teams, and that's fine. And so the weird thing is like there's these crazy, raging, grumpy fans that mistakenly thought like they were going to have some like personal, vengeful, like rally the people revolution. But like the Big 12 knew none of that was going to happen because the Big 12's contract was written for none of that to happen. Anyway, sorry, that's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
You know what? That's all the perfect sense in the world, Tony. But those people are just going to be who they are. So They have to be disgruntled, and that's okay because that's their persona. And God bless them.
Oh my God, this is so cute. Hold on. This guy says if each team gives up 1 million, those people won't give up 37 cents.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Oregon won't give up money, Oregon State won't give up money.
Kuz is the man. By the way, if you guys are not following Kuz's Corner, Kuz is awesome. And Kuz delivers great content. He's a West Virginia guy, but he does like all sorts of national stuff. If you're not following Kuz's Corner, you should be. Because Kuz is the man. And he's like, Kuz is also like super wise. Like, listen to what Kuz says, because it's usually very wise. Except sometimes he gets a little thinking Arizona's going somewhere they're not. But no, we love Kuz. Kuz is absolutely awesome. Kuz, you don't have to defend your conference. Your conference is making good money. Like, seriously, Brett Yormark was the man. That was, I believe, again, by my calculations, I've published the charts on it. He's got 125% increase that he negotiated, and that is just like rock star. So, kudos to him. They know that they knew when they made that deal that those teams weren't coming because they knew the Arizona schools weren't going. They knew that Colorado wasn't going. And so you don't have to negotiate that in if you know people aren't going. Anyway. Kuz W fan. Kuz is just the man. All right, Alex, I'm sorry. We've cut you off and run over like roughshod on what you were talking about.
It's all good. But to what you were saying, like the Arizona schools get a lot of students from California. Same thing with Colorado. That's why they went out west. A lot of, we call Colorado UC Boulder, right? So there's that connection. The only school that ever may have been a wild card for the Big 12 in the Pac-12 may have been Utah, only because they crushed it in the Mountain West. They've crushed it in the Pac-12. If they went into the Big 12, they could play BYU again and some of those other schools that they might have been playing prior. But I mean, yeah, I don't care about the Big 12. They can beef all they want. Like, they got a great deal. They're set. Like, I'm not worried. Like, the Big 12 is going to be fine. I'm just worried about the Pac-12. The Big 12 is like, because it's sort of a transitory, like, with its members, like, it'll kind of always have maybe people going in and out, but they're going to be fine. So they're in a good spot. Like, so I don't know why they want to, like, try to, like, say, oh, like, get into beefs with whoever, but
they weirdly sometimes like to get into beefs with each other too. It's really strange. Like, it's a pride thing. Maybe it's like a jailhouse thing. No, you're right. But I think they're in a wonderful spot. I also think that they would hate being in the Pac-12. And I think that they would hate having some of the Pac-12 teams there and the students and the fans. Like, can you imagine what they would think of Stanford? What would happen when the Stanford band went to Baylor?
I'm already thinking about how certain people I follow on Twitter for like USC and UCLA are going to be like thought of by big fans, like Big Ten fans. And it's even like crazier if you start to think about like, the kind of shenanigans that you have like from certain like really smart Cal and Stanford people on Twitter, like going at it with Big 12. Like, you want to talk about like culture differences and whatnot in all kinds of different areas. Like, yeah, no, it would be there's not a match there, I think, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, you are. I think you're right. So it's pretty funny. Oh, too funny. And it's just sad the way, these weird fans are just lying to people about some of this stuff. But anyway. All right. Well, we are over our time. Who said I have a spray tan? I do not have a spray tan. I live in Florida. We go outside.
Wait, you mean it's not 20 degrees where you live?
No, it's nice. All right. Well, should we wrap up? Alex, any final thoughts here?
Well, if this happens, we'll be chatting again. But, again, I've kind of obviously taken a pessimistic mood on all this, but if this does go down, we'll be chatting again. Or if it doesn't, we'll be chatting again.
Well, thanks
All
for
right.
joining us, Alex. Appreciate it.
There,
Go Bears.
go Bears.
All right. Who's next? Final thoughts.
I'll go. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us. We're going to continue this Pac-12 live chat show during the off season, and great show tonight with the information that Tony provided. Next week, we're going to talk some transfer portal. There's some interesting dynamics that are shaping up. We're going to take a look at. We ran out of time this week, but we're going to go to it next week. We're going to look at a couple programs that are going to be rebuilding their rosters in the Pac-12, and that goes with ASU and Colorado. And we're also going to take a peek at the Big Ten, because there's some new coaches in the Big Ten, and we're going to take a look at Nebraska and Wisconsin with Matt Rule and Luke Fickell, reshaping those programs. So tune in next week. That's what we'll have for you. Tim, what else are we going to talk about?
I think we're going to talk about some recruiting and maybe some of the misconceptions and some of the myths out there about college recruiting, as well as highlight some of the key players, the new additions through the traditional recruiting of high school players in the Pac-12, and mainly highlight the 5-star. A lot of the 5-star. Well, we have, I believe, 5 stars join the Pac-12. We'll be talking about those guys in depth.
All right. Well, before we go, I just want to give a shout out and a little bit of celebration. On behalf of the Trojan family and on behalf of the Bruin family, I want to welcome our Mustangs and our Aztecs to the conference. We'll see if there's more to add and more to welcome. USC and UCLA were the two real instigators that founded this conference in 1959. The conference opened on July 1st, 1959. And have been part of this conference and leading this conference and driving this conference the whole time. And we, just speaking from the Trojan family standpoint, we are excited about our new future, but at the same time, we care about this conference that we built from the ground up in 1959, and we want it to be successful. And we care about its success, and we care about our friends in it. We care about our partners in it and the schools that we've been together with for over a century, and we want them to succeed. And I'll just tell you guys, I am just really proud and excited to have SMU and San Diego State expected here now to join the Pac-12. I hope that it goes through. I hope that we don't have wrinkles or surprises. We might. I hope that we don't, because I'm really proud that they are going to be joining on board. So I guess we'll wrap it up with a go Aztecs and pony up.
One more thing, guys. Tune in next week for a little bit of news, also a little bit of shocking news we have coming for you next week. So
we do. It's kind of exciting.
Please join us next week for that.
Show news.
Thanks for hanging out, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Pony up. We'll see you guys.